ended.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's Town Hall with the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston. My name is Clayla Perot and I'll be your moderator. I'm sure some of you are joining for the first time, so I'll tell you a little bit about what you can expect. Earlier this evening, several Nova Scotians received an invitation to join our conversation by phone. Those who have chosen to participate will have an opportunity to ask their questions to the Premier directly. If you are participating by phone and would like to ask a question, please hit *3 to be added to the queue. We are broadcasting live on the Nova Scotia Government Facebook page and YouTube channel. Those viewers will also have the opportunity to participate. If you're watching with us online, you can email your questions to nstownhall@novascotia.ca. That just about covers it. We have about an hour together, so settle in, get comfortable, and we're going to get to as many questions as we can. For those on the phone, now is the time to hit *3 so that you can ask the Premier your questions. Before we get to the questions, Premier, is there anything you'd like to share with Nova Scotians?
Well, thanks so much. Good evening, folks. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful Nova Scotia evening here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you tonight and taking your questions. Press *3 if you'd like to ask a question to me directly. I think these town halls are a great place to hear directly from you. I want to hear what's on your mind, what's happening in your communities, and also give you a little bit of an update on matters that I know are important to you on some of the important issues. So right now, I've been spending the summer touring around our beautiful province. What a privilege to be the Premier and come to your communities and visit your businesses and knock on your doors and speak to you on your doorsteps about this incredible province that we live in. And we've covered a lot of ground so far this summer, from the Valley to Colchester to Cape Breton through HRM. Lots of time will be coming up in the South Shore soon as well. But next week in particular, I'll be sticking pretty close to Halifax. Next week, I'm hosting all of the premiers from across the country for our annual meetings for the COF meeting. So this is a good chance for me to talk to colleagues about the issues that they're seeing and to really collaborate on things that they may be doing well, so we can maybe work together to find solutions to some of our biggest issues, which we share a lot of similar issues. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the Council to Federation meetings. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I do want to hear directly from you. So whether it's questions about healthcare, education, housing, roads, more money in your pocket, anything that's on your mind, really, I want to hear from you tonight. So happy to take your questions. Press *3 if you would like to chat or ask a question, and look forward to the conversation over the next hour. So thank you so much, everyone.
All right. First up, we have Casey in Truro. Casey has a question about promoting a Nova Scotia Stampede. Casey, go ahead with your question.
Hello, Premier Houston. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Casey.
That's good. I just have a quick question for you. I saw pictures online of you at the Calgary Stampede, I guess, just recently. I'm just wondering, I guess, who went up there to the Calgary Stampede, if you and your family went, and what contingency went with you. And I just would like to know how much that cost the taxpayers, and if you think this is appropriate, this cost, with the amount of homeless people and people struggling to afford basic day-to-day needs. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Casey. And of course, the decisions of government, we're always trying to balance, investing in Nova Scotians. We're always, if you look at our provincial budget, the investments we make in housing, in homelessness, in education, in roads, in healthcare, significant investments trying to deal with the issues of the here and now, of today. But we also need to look for the future. What's possible for our province, promoting our province. Of course, our tourism industry, incredibly important to our economy. Just imagine where we would be without a tourism industry. It's incredibly important to our province. So the job of the Premier is to promote Nova Scotia as a place to visit, as a place to do business, as a place to grow and succeed. And I think that's really important to the future of our province, that we take those moments and we share the tremendous pride that we feel in our province with others and encourage them to come and see us. So there's a number of events that we try to host in this province over the course of the year. And of course, many people on tonight would be familiar with the incredible successful World Juniors that we recently hosted, and events all across this province and in your communities, and certainly what's happening in Truro with the management at the rec there and the exhibition grounds, bringing concerts, bringing excitement to the community, and the opportunity to have a Nova Scotia Stampede here in Truro at the exhibition grounds in September. I think when they first turned the tickets on sale for the camping packages, I think they sold out pretty quickly. It's going to be an exciting time in our province for sure. But I think to answer your question, Casey, what I would say is it's not either or. We have to grow our economy so that we can have money to invest in the services that Nova Scotians have a right to expect. There's an old expression that says you can't distribute wealth until you create it. So we need to grow our economy so that we can have tax revenues and a tax base so that we can invest in all of those programs like the ones that you mentioned. So I'm very proud of the team from Truro and the area and their foresight and their vision to come up with events like the Nova Scotia Stampede. There's quite a bit of excitement around the Calgary Stampede about a Nova Scotia Stampede, and it's going to be a really good thing for the area. And I'm glad that as a provincial government, we're able to support them directly, but by being present at those types of meetings. Also had a number of other meetings out there on healthcare, on energy, and on other possible events for this province. So it was a useful trip. So if you ask me if I think it was worthwhile, 100%, Casey. And this is what's really important, is promoting our province and being proud of what we can have to offer. So thank you for your question. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much, Premier. Next, we're going to go to Larry, who's joining us from the Dartmouth area. Larry has a question about long wait times to see their family doctor, as well as other healthcare options that are available. Larry, you can go ahead with your question.
Yes, I was just wanting to know if we could have faster service when it comes to getting a family doctor.
Hey, Larry, a couple of things. I mean, absolutely, we want you to have a family doctor. We want you to have a primary care provider, and we want that faster. In fact, that's kind of the motto of our government, especially around healthcare: more, faster. So, look, in healthcare, I'm really glad you asked this question, because if you're talking about the family doctor side of things, what we call the primary care, access to primary care, it surprises a lot of people to know that we've opened up, that didn't exist before our government, just didn't exist at all. We've created almost 1 million new primary care appointments every single year. I think in the month of May it was over 75,000 new primary care appointments. Didn't exist before. We've done that through pharmacy clinics. We've done that through urgent treatment centers. We've done that through mobile primary care clinics. These are all new avenues to access care. So for those that aren't attached, that are on the list, of course I'm concerned about the list and I want you to have a doctor, but those that are on that list, I want you to know that there are some options. Being on the list doesn't mean you do not have access to care. You can use those pharmacy clinics. A lot of people are using those pharmacy clinics and it's just right for them. A lot of people are using the mobile clinics, hearing good feedback, the urgent treatment centers. And the million appointments doesn't even include virtual care. You know, there being over another 10,000 Nova Scotians every single month that use virtual care. So we're opening up, we're building capacity. And now we need to make sure that we make that capacity available to you, that you know that it's available for you. And we will continue to recruit doctors. We will continue to recruit nurses and other healthcare professionals. As a matter of fact, we passed a law. It's called the Patient Access to Care Act. And this piece of legislation does a couple of things. But for this conversation, the thing that I think is really important is it looks at common sense credentialing. So in your case, with a family doctor, under this law, a doctor in the UK in good standing. Good enough for the UK, good enough for Nova Scotia. United States, other Australia, other countries, other parts of Canada, just so the doctors can be mobile. And certainly Atlantic Canada has certain agreements with other provinces as well. So the Patient Access to Care Act has been helpful. There are more doctors today than there were a year ago. There's certainly a lot more nurses today than there were a year ago. So we'll continue to recruit. We'll continue to support our doctors that we have here so we can keep them, because you can't recruit unless you can retain. But we're also having a view to the future. And this is exactly why we're opening up a medical school at Cape Breton University. And that medical school, when it's in full swing, will graduate 30 doctors every single year. And they'll be slanted towards Nova Scotians, so opportunities for Nova Scotians to go to medical school at Cape Breton University, and slanted towards rural Nova Scotians, so people who are attached to this province and want to be here. So that's a little bit looking out to the future, not too far. I'd call that the medium term, I guess, for graduates from there. We will continue to recruit. We'll continue to make sure we get maximum benefit from the Patient Access to Care Act. It's already working, but in the meantime, there are a number of avenues for you to access care. I want you to make sure you know that. But overall, more than anything, I want you to know that we're very focused on making sure that you are attached to a doctor or a nurse practitioner, primary care. So this is a focus of our government. I'm more determined today even than I was when I was first elected, and I was pretty determined then. But I want you to know how focused we are on this. So I really appreciate you putting that on the table and just making sure that we continue to watch that. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Premier. And a reminder to those who are going to be asking their questions over the phone, now is the time to hit *3. Next, we're going to go to Carolyn, who's joining us from Truro. She has some questions about healthcare data and spending and outcomes. Carolyn, go ahead with your question.
Good evening, Premier Houston. I'm wondering if you'd be able to direct us to a document that outlines the additional Nova Scotia dollars spent on healthcare and what indicators have been measured and what data collected on the positive outcomes resulting from the additional dollars spent in the last 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, sure, Carolyn. Thanks for that important question. As you may know, I'm an accountant, so I'm very focused on data. I was actually quite surprised when I first became Premier at how little data was really available, and certainly how little data was being analyzed on a number of different areas. But I mean, as an example, just within the hospitals, there wasn't really a system that if somebody needed to be admitted from the emergency department, it wasn't really a system that looked at bed capacity across. The data wasn't there. There was a lot of phone calls that were made. Do you have a bed? Do you have a bed? Do you have a bed? But so now we built a command center called C3 where everyone is looking at the data. And that's just an example of the type of data we're aggregating across the system and absolutely looking at outcomes every single day, really. So there's more data that's still being pulled together, but we'll continue to focus on that. But to your specific question about the budgets, yeah, the budgets are obviously the provincial budgets are very, very public documents, get a lot of scrutiny, and you wouldn't have any trouble at all finding the Nova Scotia budgets and zeroing right in on healthcare and seeing exactly where the dollars go. But I will tell you, the issues in healthcare are significant. We do have a lot of work to do. There's no question about that. But we've come an awful long way in less than 3 years. I often say to people, look, we didn't break it, but we're totally focused on fixing it, and that's exactly what's happening. So right now, if we look at components of it, EHS, we look at the number of ambulances that would be on the road, and you look at what would be scheduled versus what's actually supposed to be there. We're starting to see now that every day, and this has been happening for a while, touch wood, that the actual number of ambulances on the road is what was scheduled. So we're meeting that component. We're seeing the response times come to within that range that's in the contract. And that we're seeing that because of government policy, is having an impact. We have 30 advanced care paramedics coming to Nova Scotia from Australia. You may have read about that. That is actually an outcome of the piece of legislation we passed, the Patient Access to Care Act. We've made some policy changes about what the interactions that paramedics would have with somebody who calls. We have a doctor on the telephone when you call in to help triage you so we can send the appropriate vehicle to you. So all of these things, they're government policy. And the question that you're asking is the question that I ask every day. Are they having an impact? And I would absolutely tell you that they are having a positive impact, but I would also absolutely tell you that there is work to be done. And obviously the biggest thing is the list of people that need to be attached. But when we look at wait lists across a number of things, we see them actually starting to come down. We see our time to delivery within the what they will call as the national best ranges. So good things are happening. And it's all being driven by healthcare professionals. We listen closely to them, and I think if you talk to a healthcare professional, many of them would tell you that they can feel the momentum, that they're hopeful. They tell me that. They also tell me to keep going, make sure I don't slow down, and certainly we won't. But I just want you to know that the taxpayer dollars that we are stewards over are absolutely something that we're very focused on. We don't get everything. We're not perfect. Not every investment we make is exactly the outcome we want, but there is so much work to be done that we have to move forward. And I think things like the investments in the app, I hope you've downloaded the app. I hope everyone listening tonight has downloaded the Your Health NS app. The feedback on that app is really, really, really positive, and really gives us the strength to keep going forward on that. But you can see your records on there. You can participate more in your healthcare. So we're looking at we're looking at the outcomes. We're looking at the spend, and I'm glad you are as well, because it's all part of how our democracy works. But I really appreciate you asking that question tonight, Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Premier. Next, we're going to go to Doug, who's calling in from central Nova Scotia. Doug has a question about timing to harness the Bay of Fundy. Doug, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, my concern is, and I talked to you about this before, we want to get off of fossil fuels, but how are we going to generate our power? And the tides of the Bay of Fundy are enormous. If we would only put work into them, do it. Another thing is roads. Our roads are poorly maintained, and I would say some of the places where the roads have been built, there was no concerns about conserving energy. Barney's River is a great example of what they build over there. It's a hard road. Same way with Cobequid Pass. There was easier routes, but they didn't do it. And also in New Glasgow, from Antigonish through to Cobequid Pass, the wood that's still laying on the side of the road that blew over from Hurricane Juan is unbelievable. And you talk about building a pulp mill in Liverpool. What about all the cost to truck it down there? You got 3 or 4 big mills right here in this central area that would ship their chips to over to Northern Pulp if it was still there, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Thank you.
Hi, Doug. Thanks for being on tonight, and certainly that's a wide range of important topics, I'd say, but and all good discussions. Certainly on the energy file, the potential for Nova Scotia to be really a world leader in the production of green energy, driven by the Bay of Fundy, as you say, driven by incredible wind speeds onshore but incredible wind speeds offshore. We have powerful winds, and they blow a lot. It can be windy. So the energy opportunities are significant. We're really excited about the energy opportunities. Again, it's as we look to the future. None of these things are overnight, but we have to have a long view on these things. That's what's really important. So the energy file is important. Definitely. Speaking of the wind, you're right. The blowdown from the storms is significant and devastating to many landowners, and a lot of that is still laying down and looking for some way to use that. The opportunities in using some of that for fuel or other mechanisms, those are significant opportunities too. So we need to look forward to that. So I take your point on those things. The roads, we have a lot of roads. I would say in terms of roads, a couple of things since we've come to government. There's a fund called the Rural Impact Mitigation Program. And this is a program that's specifically for the maintenance and repair of rural roads. It's known as the RIM, the Rural Impact Mitigation Program. That program is up to $36 million a year. When we came to government, it was around 10. So every year we're adding more. We know there's more work to be done on the roads. In addition to that, there's about $55 million for gravel roads in the capital plan. There's almost $500 million for major projects on 100 series highway, different construction projects that you will have seen happening around, some through the areas that you've mentioned as well, but repaving, structure work. So I guess what I would say is that the capital budgets on roads and other infrastructure are breathtakingly large, very, very significant. And again, we got some catch up to do on some of these things, but we make those investments. And we make those investments in Nova Scotians. And there's a tough decisions at the government table, but you're worth it. Nova Scotians are worth those investments, and that's what always drives us. But so significant investments in roads, but significant potential for this province in energy generation down the road for sure. But so thanks for being here tonight, Doug. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Premier. We're going to switch things up for a second, and we're going to go to a question that was sent in through email. We're going to ask a question from Adam, who's located in Pugwash. Adam's question for you, Premier, is, what is the plan to clear the backlogs in the justice system? What will be done to ease staffing constraints and address the shortage of courtrooms?
Well, Adam, thanks for this really, really important question as we look what's happening through our court system. We do know that there is a backlog, and keeping the courts running efficiently is definitely a high priority for us, and it's a priority for our justice partners, everyone working across the justice system. So there is significant work that's underway to use more virtual services for specific hearings where it's appropriate, and this has improved access to justice for many Nova Scotians. It's also sped things up, so that's really important that we don't lose sight of that. But I think the main thing we've done is we've really made the budget available to add more staff, and we've also actually built more courtrooms to help improve court services. So I take your point. I'm glad you raised it tonight, Adam, just on to keep the focus on making sure that things are moving through the courts at a acceptable, reasonable pace. That's what fair access to justice is all about. And there are staffing needs there, but we're focusing on that as well. Significant recruiting going on there as well. But thank you for adding that. It's something that we're focused on as well.
Thank you, Premier. A lot of really great questions being asked tonight. Next, we're going to go to Jeff, who is a bricklayer, and Jeff would like to ask a question about increasing training for bricklaying across the province. Jeff, go ahead with your question.
How you doing, Tim?
Doing great, buddy.
I would why is there only training in Halifax when there's bricklayers needed throughout the province?
I didn't actually realize that, but I can certainly look into that. But just a little funny aside, my first job was a laborer for a bricklayer, mixing the mortar and carrying the bricks up. So I know how important it is, and as we build our province and try to address the significant infrastructure and needs that we have in residential housing and commercial buildings and all the things we're building. So I know that that's a skill set that's incredibly important. I didn't actually realize that the only place you can get that training is Halifax. So I'm glad you flagged that for me, and we'll look at what's possible working with the community college and others as well. But certainly an important profession. So thank you, Jeff, for raising that one and putting that on my radar.
Thank you. And just a reminder for those who want to ask questions over the phone, now is the time to dial *3. Up next, we have Donna calling in from Dartmouth. Donna has a question about indexing income tax and struggles that some seniors are facing. Donna, please go ahead.
Hi, Premier Houston. I know that Nova Scotia tax indexing hasn't been done in over 20 years, and wondering when that will be changed. The second part of that would be every time we get a federal discount and, it's going to put more money in our pockets, Nova Scotia always claws that back. And this is from working for years and years and knowing that I've never received any of that benefit. Being a senior now, when will these things be addressed? And it would help everybody in Nova Scotia if the indexing was better. And the example is last year, the Revenue Canada mistakenly put me in as New Brunswick instead of Nova Scotia, and they give me $900 more on my income tax return. And when I questioned it, it came about that it was because I didn't live in New Brunswick. So $900 is a nice little amount that I feel we should be getting too.
Thank you, Donna, for that, and certainly that is real money. There's no question about that. But good news. Beginning January 1st, 2025, we will be in Nova Scotia indexing personal income tax brackets. We will be indexing the basic personal exemption amount, and also certain other non-refundable tax credits. We're going to index them to the rate of inflation. So that was passed in the budget, the most recent budget, and it is effective January 1st. Just the time difference is it just takes that long, I guess. You have to work with the CRA to make sure that it can happen, but it will be for 2025. And this you're absolutely right on the significance of it. Indexing is a significant amount, and this one single move, and I'm pleased we were able to deliver this in this budget. It is the most significant tax relief that Nova Scotians have seen in quite some time. I think a couple decades, but it's quite some time for sure. This one single tax break will save Nova Scotians about $150 million per year. So that is a significant amount of money to leave in the hands of the hardworking Nova Scotians that earned it. So I'm really pleased that we were able to do that. So that one, yes, we'll put a little check mark beside that one, I guess, Donna. Now on the second part of your question, I think I understood your question to be that, when one source of income goes up, whether it's a pension or some other type of income, federal payment, provincial payment, it puts you up into an area where you lose out on something else. I think that's what you were kind of referring to on the second part there. So this is a constant struggle. We always look at the programs and the income thresholds on those, and try to make sure that we're leaving people better off than they were with those programs. But I take your point that it's something we need to look at. But indexing of the personal income tax brackets and exemptions and some of the non-refundables is coming. So that's good news. And just as along the same vein, I guess, also effective January 1st, 2025, all income assistance streams will be indexed annually based on the CPI, the rate of inflation too. So there you go. So the budget included some indexing. So I hope you're I hope that's helpful, and we'll continue to look for other ways for tax relief. We'll continue to look for other ways to support Nova Scotians, as you've mentioned there. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Premier. I'm sure there's a lot of people who will be very interested in that. Up next, we're going to go to Helen, who had a positive experience with 811 over the weekend and would like to discuss that further. Helen, please go ahead.
Hi, Premier Houston. I called 811, and I did not know of this service, but they sent one paramedic, and he came in an SUV to do an evaluation. And then in consultation with the doctor, he recommends whether or not you should take an ambulance. And I think this is a fantastic use of manpower. And I wondered, is this a trial, or is this going to be continued and expanded?
Well, thank you, Helen, for raising that, and I certainly hope you're feeling good now. But I mentioned earlier about having ambulances on the road because we've been able to address some of the staffing things. Some of that would do with the contract negotiations. We negotiated new contract with with paramedics, with nurses, with doctors. Actually, I think we've negotiated as a government something in the range of 288 employment agreements and contracts with unions since we've been here in less than 3 years, with very little kind of labor disruption, a little bit. But so all of that to say, the policy around staffing has been helpful. I mentioned other policies that have been helpful to improve the response time and the level of service, and certainly this is one that you're mentioning here. The single paramedic response, when it's triaged appropriately, as being one that a single paramedic can go to instead of two people in the unit. The single units are responding. I'm glad you had a good experience with that. That is a policy decision. It's here to stay. It's working good, and I'm glad that Helen, that it helped you as well. But and just on the finally thing, since we're on the kind of the ambulance discussion here, we recently announced also that we will cover full tuition costs for somewhere in the range of 460 people who want to become a primary care paramedic or an emergency medical responder. So we're focused on these staffing levels. We do that through tough but fair contract negotiations. We do that through recruitment, the common like recognizing people's credentials from other areas. We do that from investing in training to the future. So thank you for sharing that positive experience. I do think we have a long way to go in healthcare and some of the other challenges we face, but there is progress being made, and I think Helen, you've just I guess experienced some of that yourself. So thank you for raising that tonight.
Okay, thanks so much, Premier. Up next, we have Earl, who's calling in all the way from the South Shore. Earl has a question around financing and reimbursement for volunteer firefighter departments. Go ahead, Earl.
Hi, Tim. You're an accountant, so maybe you can answer this question. I'm part of a local volunteer fire department. We're a registered charity, and we have a budget of around $200,000 a year. We're sort of a medium-sized department, and everything we buy, we have to pay HST on. So on a budget of approximately $200,000 a year, we pay $30,000 HST. $10,000 of that goes to the federal government, and they return 100% of it when we send in our receipts. $20,000 goes to the provincial government, and they keep 43%. They send back 57%. So they keep, out of our $200,000 budget, they keep about $8,600. And no one has ever been able to answer the question as to why the provincial government is keeping our tax money.
Thank you, Earl. I will say that I have heard this before. I can circle back to the department on that, but I guess a couple of things I would say is, first and foremost, thank you for your service. I don't know where we would be without first responders, volunteer fire service, search and rescue teams, all everyone who's there every time we pick up the phone. So thank you for that. We've also tried to do what we can to support you financially. So and personally as well. I know in last year we moved forward with a commitment to increase presumptive coverage to 19 cancers from 6 cancers. So we're trying to make sure that we're conscious of the risk that you're on and be there, that you put yourself into, and be there to support you. Of course, some of the grants that we've put forward, I know, have been helpful to departments in investing in some of the equipment that they need and other services to keep you safe when you're doing your job. But on the HST kind of, I guess, the question around HST exemptions and what could be exempt and whose purchase should be exempt. I can circle back to the department on that. But on the topic of first responders and those who step up to help their community when they're needed, it would be a good time for me to mention the Nova Scotia Guard. The concept of the Nova Scotia Guard is something that I think will be very, very helpful to our communities. And since we've been in government, which was less than 3 years, we've stood up our provincial coordination center 6 times for natural disasters. Devastating fires, floods, loss of life with those floods, snowstorm, Fiona, 6 times. And I think in the 10 or 12 years before that, it stood up once. So we know that the world is changing. We know we can expect more, and we're doing what we can to try to be prepared for that. So through the Nova Scotia Guard, they'll be going around the province this summer to talk to Nova Scotians about the Nova Scotia Guard and what it means. But basically, essentially, we're just trying to have identified who is willing to help, what skills they have, so we can call on them quickly should we need them. Where the equipment is the equipment willing to help? We can call on it, So Nova Scotia Guard people will be coming to the community, but certainly for our volunteer fire departments and other first responders, Earl, thank you for everything you do, and I'll take that one back to the department and see the rationale and what might be possible there. But thank you for raising that question, Earl, tonight.
Next, we're going to go to Catherine, calling in from right here in Halifax. Catherine has a question about a recent City Council meeting and conversations between the City and the province on housing. Catherine, please go ahead.
Hello. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. I'm great, thank you.
I listen to the Halifax City Council meetings, and they frequently talk about housing. This is a provincial responsibility, and the HRM has asked for coordination with the Nova Scotia government, but little coordination has happened. The municipality is faced with designating camping sites in park areas, and now they're going to have them in Point Pleasant Park and on the Commons too. Why does the province not work with the municipality on this issue?
Thank you, Catherine, and certainly the relationships between the various levels of government, the federal government and the province and the municipalities, and so on and so forth. These are critical relationships, and we have great respect for all levels of government. As a matter of fact, our government has worked very proactively with municipalities, including HRM for sure, on negotiating a new memorandum of understanding that talks about the investments the province would make and the exchange of services back and forth. This MOU hadn't been touched. Nobody wanted to touch this MOU in I think 20 years. But Minister Lohr and our government, we picked it up, and we've managed to get a new agreement with the municipalities, and it was a very productive discussion. So the relationships back and forth are I would say very positive. There are certainly, we don't always agree on everything, So I wouldn't agree with the characterization that the province has been somehow distant or dismissive or not paying attention on the housing. I just wouldn't agree with that characterization. Housing is a big challenge. There's no question with the size of housing. And it's going to take all levels of government working together. It's going to take many sectors. It's going to take the public, private, not-for-profit. It's really all hands on deck. And I would say that for our provincial government, we've made significant investments in housing and certainly significant investments across the province with a number of municipalities, definitely including HRM. And we've also tried to initiate a number, as I say, sometimes the government policy doesn't just sometimes these policies take time. So when we came to government, we recognized the challenges in housing, the crisis in housing, and we moved forward with a number of policies. So government policy around having a labor force to build homes. That's the MOST program is one that comes to hand there. The more opportunities for skilled trades. And under that program, people under 30 years old working in a skilled trade don't pay any personal provincial income tax, on their first 50 grand of income. So this is try to drive young people into skilled trades, keep young people in Nova Scotia in the skilled trades, get other young skilled trades people from other parts of the country to come here and help us build. The MOST program is working. We also looked at provincial crown land, provincial government land, and said, what's the best use case for that land, and who could give us a proposal to build housing on some of that land that would be a better use than what was currently there. We've received a number of proposals on there. There's a number of things going forward on that. We've also looked at the process to get building permits and to move forward. And in some cases, some potential developments were in that permitting stage for 10 years. So we've tried to kind of be realistic about what should go forward and what shouldn't, and tried to work with the municipalities and put a task force in place to say, if it's a yes that it should go forward, then it's a yes. It's not always yes, though, and sometimes it's no, and it should be no. But the maybes and the dragging out over the years are what's not productive. So a number of government policies, provincial government policies, have been focused on housing. And I will tell you this. They're starting to work. In the first quarter of this year, the housing starts were up tremendously compared to the first quarter of last year. I don't have the exact numbers to hand, Catherine, but it's somewhere in the order of magnitude of, in the first quarter last year, there were somewhere around, I think, 800 housing starts across the province. And in the first quarter this year, it was over 2,000, just to give you kind of a sense of the dramatic difference that's taken place there. And this is because of a couple of things, but certainly the government policy that was put in place over 2 years ago is starting to work. Taking HST off multi-unit buildings, another government policy where Nova Scotia was kind of leading the way. So long way of saying significant challenges in housing, significant provincial government focus on housing, and significant efforts to work cooperatively and productively with other levels of government, certainly including HRM and other municipalities, also including the federal government. This is all hands on deck. So we can work together. We can get through this, and we will get through these challenges. But certainly the province will be there. The housing plan that we've put forward, it's a 5-year housing plan. I encourage you to check it out online, and you will see some of the stuff on there. The Nova Scotia Housing Plan over 5 years, it's over $1.5 billion of investment in housing, and it will focus on kind of 3 areas. Number 1, increasing the housing supply. Number 2, making sure that we sustain the affordable housing supply that we have there. And the third thing, I guess, would be just providing the programs that people need as they move forward, including something like the backyard suite program, where people can get up to $40,000 to build a backyard suite, a nanny suite, there sometimes referred to as. So, Catherine, I absolutely assure you, that the provincial government is very focused on housing and is working with Halifax Municipal Council. Thank you for reaching out tonight.
Thank you, Premier. We're now going to go to Wayne McKenzie from Victoria County. Wayne would like to share some comments about his recent experience in the healthcare system. Wayne, please go ahead.
Hi, Premier. Hello.
Hey, Wayne. I got you. I can hear you.
Yes. Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank you for some of the work that you're doing. I had, I guess it'd be a year and a half ago, I had a heart attack, and we called for the ambulance, and I would say inside a half hour, they were at the door, and couldn't get over the service they gave me, and took me to Inverness in a snowstorm that evening, and then went from there. They were going to fly me out to Halifax, but the weather was too bad, so they kept me there and looked after me till the morning, and I went up by ambulance to Halifax, and Halifax couldn't do enough. They were waiting for me when I got there, and no time at all. They had me fixed up and in a room, and then I ended up back in Sydney just to get healed up, I guess, enough to get home. So I can't say enough about it. It was terrific, and the only thing I growled about is the ride ambulance. My God Almighty, the old farm truck wagons weren't that bad, you know. But anyway, getting back, I mean, I was just wondering if there's any way of us maybe getting a later team to do the same job, like they're running a ton truck or better than a ton truck, just to carry two or three people around the road. It seems like a little much, but maybe that's the way it's the laws are. I don't know, but I think you get something a lot cheaper and more fuel efficient, a smaller vehicle.
Yeah,
that's my beef there.
Well, thank you, Wayne, and thank you for sharing that that positive experience you had. I'm glad you're feeling good and on the mend. We have good people working in our healthcare system. We have the very finest healthcare professionals working here in Nova Scotia, and when you get really sick in this province, you're going to get good care from good people that are compassionate and care a lot about you. So thank you for those kind words about our healthcare professionals. And I guess a lot of talk about the EHS system tonight, but to your point, another policy that we had was the transport units. So sometimes when somebody needs to be transported from one hospital to another, or from a hospital to a test and back again, oftentimes in the past that would have been done by advanced care paramedics, and now we have these transport units that can just the most appropriate resource at that time to free up an ambulance to go on the road. But we also have the air transport too, the fixed wing, which is moving people around too, and it's taking a lot of pressure off the system in terms of hours on the road and getting people to where they need to be quicker and more efficiently, so they can get better care quicker. But to your point on the smoothness of some of the road, the travels along the roads, I take your point on that, and certainly that's something we can look at, the gear that's used, the type of vehicle that's used, but also certainly the road maintenance, which we talked about earlier, is a part of that as well. But thanks for sharing that experience, Wayne. It's there's sometimes things go wrong, and there's negative outcomes or negative experiences. And we often hear about those on the front page of the paper. But aside from those, every single day, thousands and thousands of Nova Scotians are having positive experiences with the healthcare system. So it's nice to hear one of those once in a while too. So I really appreciate you, Wayne, sharing that experience with us.
Thank you. It's time to head back to our emails. This question was sent in from Aiden, who is in Cole Harbour. Aiden would like to ask if the province has plans on improving transportation within the province, and specifically about any plans around rail.
Hey, Aiden, thanks for this is a really kind of timely question, and it goes with Catherine's question earlier too on housing, and really kind of speaks to what I would say is the livability of the province, the ability to move around. So we're focused on transportation. We created something called the Joint Regional Transportation Authority. And the Joint Regional Transportation Authority was a new initiative. It's actually getting national exposure. We have multi levels of government and professionals looking at transportation options. So right here in Halifax, we announced as part of some of the research done from the Joint Regional Transportation Authority and some otherwise high-speed ferry service. For travel between Bedford and downtown Halifax. That's was a long time coming, but we've announced that, and that will happen, the high-speed ferry service. In Cape Breton University, we've announced we're doing a feasibility study led by Cape Breton University to look at the feasibility of battery-powered light rail train service within the CBRM. And that would build on existing infrastructure and look at using the rail corridor that exists there. This is a study that's happening right now to look at rail in the CBRM. It's expected to be completed by the end of the year, so that'll be a fulsome study. But for me personally, I think the potential for rail in moving people around in a way that's an efficient use of their time. Rail is very attractive to me personally, I would say. So there's a lot of effort and thought going into what might be possible across all transportation mechanisms, but certainly for rail specifically. So I'm glad that's on your mind as well, Aidan, and I thank you for raising that tonight.
Thank you. Next, we're going to Doug Thompson, who's located in Liverpool. Doug has a question about the proposal of the craft mill in the area of Liverpool. Doug, please go ahead with your question.
Hello, Premier Houston. It's Doug Thompson here. I'm concerned with this craft mill proposal for the Queens County, and I noticed Rick Perkson is sort of strongly in favor of it. I don't know if he's read the book called The Mill by Joan Baxter, The Mill, 50 Years of Pulp and Protest. Probably as a bit of a disclosure, I should mention I worked for Bowater for 29 and a half years. I was there when we did some of the major upgrades for effluent treatment and what have you, and which met the guidelines, I believe, of the government of the day, national government. So this concerns me, this craft mill, which seems to have a product of pulp, but a major sided pulp of sulfur pollution and mercury pollution. I think a craft process, I don't know enough about processes, being an electrical engineer, that we should be looking at an oxygen process, not a craft process maybe. I don't know enough about that. With questions, do we have the wood to supply such a mill? I know during the late 1990s, early 2000s, the mill sold off a major chunk of land in what was called the Sissipu district to Irving Pulp and Paper. That's down Digby, Metagan way. So over the decades, the mill did go through major upgrades that reduced our pollution. We went from a sulfur system where we did batch digesters and digesting with sulfur. That was closed down. We went to a thermal mechanical pulping system, which has much less pollution, and we were able to make top quality newsprint at the mill. Took a bit of energy though, unfortunately.
So thank you, Doug. This is an important question. So I guess I would say a couple things. So as part of the settlement with Northern Pulp, there was a lot of litigation back and forth, a significant, kind of risk to taxpayers. So we were able to settle that litigation. That's a good thing. As part of the discussions on the settlement, the talk about what is the potential for a new mill in Nova Scotia, a new modern mill. So there'll be no mill in Nova Scotia that doesn't meet all of the standards for sure, and there'll be no mill in Nova Scotia that's not a modern mill that people can be proud of. So that's kind of something we can't lose sight of that, and there'll be no mill that hasn't gone through the process where public would have, the public would have their opportunity to have their say, just as you obviously, with your background and your insight, will have some important things to say about that, and you would have your chance for sure. But underlying all of this, our forestry sector is incredibly important. Our traditional industries, farming, fishing, forestry, are incredibly important to our economy and always will be. And we grow good fiber in Nova Scotia, and fiber is sought after. So the forestry sector has the capacity, to support a new mill sustainably. As trees continue to grow and get cut and grow and get cut, it has to be sustainable. This is really important. So, but the proponents of the mill would be looking at that economic case. Is there enough fiber? Just as you're saying, does it make sense? Is there a business case for it? So there would be no mill if the people who investing the money, the company, don't think there's a business case for it. So there's a lot of steps to go. But I think when you step back and you look at the importance of the forestry and the opportunity, a lot of landowners right now are struggling, to find a market for that fiber on their land. It might have been their RRSPs, as my friend Albert says to me. My land was my RRSPs, and if I can't sell wood off it, then I have no retirement funding. So there's a lot of people, tens of thousands of Nova Scotians with woodlots who would like a market for that. And just in terms of Liverpool area and the South Shore, certainly an area that could benefit from a new industrial employer where people can have a career working at an employer in their community. Be incredible jobs during the construction and certainly the operation and the spin-off businesses. So the area could benefit, the forestry sector could benefit, but it has to be done right, and there'll be no shortcuts, and there'll be a number of significant steps that have to be met before that's there. That's the feasibility study, the design, the approvals, the permits, the financing of it, the public consultations along the way, construction. So I think the potential is real and something we should take seriously, but there's a process that needs to be followed, and that process will be followed. I hope that answers your question, Doug. I appreciate you raising it.
Thank you very much, Premier. That is all the time we have this evening for questions, so thank you so much to everybody for joining. But before we go, Premier, I'm going to send things back over to you for a few closing thoughts.
Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time tonight. As always, you've given me a couple things to think about for sure. These town halls are very helpful to me. It's helpful to me to hear very directly from you on things like making sure we're being responsible with taxpayer money and how we spend it. On things like making sure we're accountable to you on decisions that we're making. It was helpful to hear some of the interactions with the healthcare system, and also some of the reminders that there's a long ways to go. But the town hall in general has been helpful to me, so I appreciate you investing the time in it tonight. We covered a lot of ground: housing, healthcare, roads, energy. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. So if we didn't get to your question, if you didn't get your question answered tonight, please send me an email. Premier@novascotia.ca. Premier@novascotia.ca. Send me an email. We'll try to make sure we get back to everyone. But I look forward to hearing from you on email or phone call, as always, or even better yet, seeing you out in your community as I continue my summer tour across our beautiful, beautiful province. So thanks for joining me tonight, and thanks. Enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone. Take care.